Hello, and welcome to this episode of Security Square, our cybersecurity focus series where we feature analyst insights, expert guests, and cover some of the latest news and happenings across the security sector. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, principal analyst here at Kramer & Company, and today our conversation is going to focus on unified resiliency. And my guest is David Cunningham, who's a senior product manager at Commvault. Welcome, David. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Shelly. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to this. So to set the stage for our conversation, it's no secret that organizations are facing a rapidly evolving threat landscape. And the hard truth, whether we want to realize it or not, is that cyber resilience is no longer nice to have. It's quickly become business mission critical. And then when you add AI into the mix and you have AI in the hands of threat actors, ransomware instances, data breaches, and nation-state attacks are not only persistent realities, they're quickly illustrating that many enterprises and their security and IT teams are woefully unprepared for rapid recovery. A lot of things contribute to that. A lack of technical expertise, silos between SecOps and IT ops teams, and sometimes a reliance on old school, untested recovery plans. They all play a role. Unified resiliency is kind of the name of the game these days for modern cyber resilience operations. And David is going to talk with us about the security challenges that enterprises face today, why unified resilience is so important, and how Commvault and CrowdStrike are collaborating to help close that resilience gap. David, are you ready to dive in?
Let's go.
Yep. Let's go. All right. So you're presenting on this topic at CrowdStrike's upcoming Falcon event. So our timing is great. We get a little sneak preview. And from the conversations that you and I have had on this topic, it's clear that a lack of testing and validation and siloed teams all play a role in organizations' collective lack of confidence in their resiliency strategies. You shared with me in a briefing earlier some stats on some research that on this topic that are pretty significant. And let me just touch on those real quickly. So 54% of organizations reported that they lack recovery confidence, and 55% of organizations share that they have siloed security and IT teams, which lead to higher risk. So I think it's safe to say that traditional playbooks are no longer work in the age of AI. So David, talk with me, if you would, about what you're seeing across the industry as it relates to resiliency strategies, that lack of confidence that we're seeing in research studies, and what you think is getting in the way of progress on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great way to kick off. That lack of confidence is really coming from the fact that the game has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So let me kind of dig into that a little bit. Prior to my role as a product manager, which I work on the cybersecurity solutions for Commvault, I've done various technical roles supporting customers across the world, like large banks and technology companies. And one of the things that I did often was help them with their disaster recovery playbooks and their plans. And one of the things that I've learned from that experience is that there's one key thing that's typically missing in these recovery plans. I'll call them traditional recovery plans, and that's it's not really taking into context the security implications well enough. Meaning that what we've been finding through our customer interviews and our discussions with our customers is that they're super hyper concerned about not just being able to recover and execute on their plans, but it's how and the end result of that recovery. They're looking for clean recovery. They're looking for a recovery that's in a good state, in a good usable state. So although these traditional recovery plans really focus on the resiliency aspects, like can I fail over? Can I recover data from these different locations to my new data centers that I'm building? There's this component missing, and we've seen this over the last, I would say 5 years probably is a good number that this is accelerating. The importance of introducing the cybersecurity tools as part of the process. And there's a stat that Sophos has around how cyber incidents, cyber attacks are really honing in on the backup infrastructure, the backup platforms, like 94% of them do that. And I know stats focused on infrastructure, but there's also an element of the data itself being impacted. And that's really where this lack of confidence is coming in. It's like not just about can I recover? It's like, am I going to be able to recover in the right state?
Right. When we've talked about this before, sort of the analogy that has come to my mind has been, think about it in terms of we have a power outage,
Hmm.
everything shuts off.
Hmm.
When the power comes back on, and it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is good, right? I mean,
Yep.
and so when you have a breach, data today is the lifeblood of every company. So when you have a breach, and you need to take this data and put it back into a system, or reboot, turn the electricity back on. You can't just rely on the fact that that data is safe. And so I think that really is kind of, in a layperson's terms, what we're talking about is the ability to have confidence in the fact that the data that you're using is clean and safe to use. And, we can go on from this point without worrying.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about continuous repeatable testing. What role does having a continuous repeatable testing process in place play when it comes to risk mitigation?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we just talked about these recovery plans, and from my experience, no matter how much you actually test your recoveries, there's always something that's gonna go wrong.
Yeah,
Technology is just complicated. I know we try to simplify. As a product manager, we try to make technology really easy to use for end users.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you're talking about hybrid solutions, multiple clouds. There's a lot of moving parts. So even with testing, something can go wrong. Now, you want to mitigate that risk as much as possible. You want to know how your tool set's going to work together, and you want to know what those pitfalls are going to be and what your expectations could be for your outcomes, like what your RPOs and RTOs will be. And
yeah.
there's this concept of cyber recovery, right? So we talked a little bit about like the traditional recovery plan, disaster recovery. Cyber recovery introduces this new concept where it's not just about recovering the test that the systems can come up. It's the integration of the tool sets and security tool sets into the stack as well. So
Right.
when we really talk about testing, it's definitely important to test to make sure you can bring your business back online. But then we also are talking about, hey, let's check out, let's make sure our tool sets can interoperate as part of this testing as well. And that's part of the game here. It's testing the full stack, test it all the way through, make the adjustments so you can meet your RPOs and RTOs and set the right expectations in the event that you have to recover.
Yeah.
We've actually developed tool sets in our platform to help with this. The clean room technology in the Commvault platform, which provides organizations with a way of creating I call it like a digital playbook, or you can pre-plan how you want your recovery scenarios to look, and you can execute your recovery in a really streamlined way, or an orchestrated, autonomous way into your isolated environment. And when those workloads go into that isolated environment, you can verify that it's working, put your security tools in there,
Right.
do additional scanning and just make sure everything's working.
Kind of a safe sandbox.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely. You mentioned interoperability, and in our conversations on this topic, I remember an interesting stat that was shared somewhere along the line from some research that ESG did. And one of the studies they did indicated that there's a 97% higher risk of failure if resiliency is not regularly tested and validated. But that can be a challenge because, as we know, there today exists a pretty large disconnect between SecOps and IT ops teams, and both the teams themselves and the tools that they use. And I would love to know your thoughts on how this impacts business cyber resiliency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say this disconnect it goes deeper than the technology stack as
Yeah,
well. There's a human element to it. There's a process element to it. Let me just kind of back up on this. So in our space, right, the resiliency space, we've seen this evolution, and it's really been an accelerated evolution of the last 5 years. It has nothing to do with COVID, but it just has to do
yeah,
with the rise of cyber threats, right?
yeah.
Security teams are getting more involved in the resiliency strategies. And what we're seeing is we have these two personas we're really playing to. IT operators, which typically would function as the role of performing the recovery operations, and the security teams, which would focus on the cyber incidents. And we're seeing like a merger here, right? A cyber incident may require some type of recovery, as an example. We have customers actually that I've spoken to wherein their security teams would come to them and they'd be like, we need you to restore a bunch of data and scan through it because we need to recover these systems and we need you to find out where the clean version of that data is. So there's this process, this interoperation that needs to happen between platforms that can help lend to that outcome. It's partially about signal sharing. It's partially about process and flow. But that interoperation has to happen in order for you to get to that outcome.
Yeah.
And we've actually built, which is interesting, we kind of recognize this. We built a whole simulated platform, which is our cyber recovery range. And it kind of integrates all our tool sets into this isolated, isolated environment with all like workloads that you would typically see in an organization. You can actually simulate through a ransomware attack or simulate through a cyber attack, see how the security tools play into that, how the signals come in and how they feed into our platform, and then actually simulate the recovery process altogether. So it really helps you see how the interoperation works between the security teams, security platforms, and security technologies, as well as our technology as also.
David, I had the opportunity to experience Commvault's recovery room and at RSAC earlier this year. And it was truly one of the coolest experiences. And, from a training standpoint, from a learning standpoint, from a working together as a team standpoint, and in this particular exercise that I was able to participate in, I was in a room and we probably had 5 or 6 different teams all working around their own breach. Yeah. And so on my team, we had probably 5 people. And a simulated breach occurred and we all had our input into what kind of action we needed to take and all this kind of thing. And one thing that was really interesting is that along the way, we thought we had done everything right and that we had found the breach, isolated it, all systems go, we are so cool, only to realize that we in fact had not been successful. And so it was such an amazing experience. It was such a great example of teamwork in action, and kind of how bringing teams together with an experience like this can really help. And so for me, I walked away from it so excited just about really, because what we're talking about here is, you mentioned it earlier, human nature. Yeah. And we learning to collaborate and share information and to not look at an issue like, well, that's an IT problem or that's a SecOps problem. This is like all of our problem. Yeah. And the way that we work together and the way that we protect our data and our customers and our company and the way that we have resilient organizations is by collaborating and working together. So for me, it was such a wonderful example of how ongoing training in these kind of exercises that recovery room allows you to do, recovery range rather, allows you to do. It was just a wonderful experience, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't yet seen that in action, recovery room is awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of secretly famous for this saying. I always say, you don't know how effectively you can recover until you actually recover.
Right.
You don't want to be in a situation where you have to recover and realize you can't effectively do it.
Yeah.
And the recovery range actually gives you that advantage, because it lets you see from the very beginning how your data would be impacted and how you can get back to that clean recovery state.
Yeah.
So it prepares you.
Well, and for me, it was also, it kind of was a little bit of an ego check, because like I said, we thought we were amazing and we were so smart and that, we did this in no time at all. And we're probably better than every other team here. And then it's like, wait a minute, folks. We didn't succeed. And so it was really, I think, to me, a great experience all the way around, a great learning experience all the way around. And I know that you're going to have a recovery range demo at Falcon. I'll mention it. I'll share later on in the conversation the booth and encourage people to go by and check it out.
And we have CrowdStrike integrated in it.
Yeah.
As part of the experience.
Awesome. Yep. All right. Let's talk a minute about clean recovery, what it is and why it's such a challenge. And in a conversation I had with your colleague, Tim Zonka, a few months ago at RSAC, we talked about the fact that recovery is not only something that's quickly become a board level concern, it's also become what he calls the new competitive moat. And Tim and I discussed the fact that industry experts estimate recovery costs at about $14,000 per minute following a cyber attack. $14,000 a minute. However, Tim shared that based on some of the experiences that he's had with customers, that these costs are actually significantly higher in many instances. And equally as alarming, Tim shared that an organization falls victim to ransomware every 14 seconds, with average downtime spanning upwards of 24 days. So when you start doing the math equation, downtime 24 days, the cost per minute on the low end of $14,000. I mean, when you think about the impact to an organization, it's staggering. And then you think about the pressure on SecOps and IT ops teams to move quickly, and that's where clean recovery comes in. So, David, walk me through why this is so critical.
Yeah, so I saw that interview with Tim, and it was a very good interview. And I like his statement about the competitive moat. Let me kind of break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think where to really start with this would be, let's talk about what clean recovery is. So Commvault, as a resiliency platform, we continuously protect our customers' data. Whatever our customers configure or plan to be protected within our platform, we protect it. We don't make any discrimination against that data.
Right.
We don't make an assumption that it's bad, that it's good, that it's not supposed to be backed up. If it's configured, we back it up, we protect it. That's key. That's a key principle that we do, because that principle really lends us to a platform where we could serve that data for multiple purposes. So if we have data that may be impacted by a cyber threat, we can provide that to a security team as an older snapshot, or we have the ability to recover the clean data. So now let's break down like what we mean by clean recovery. So because we have this continuous nature of our platform, at any given point, there could be malware, or there could be some level of encryption or corruption of that data that we're protecting. If you look at the dwell time stats, I mean, you're going to get a lot of different numbers depending on who you use for your stats on what a cyber threat dwell time is, meaning the length of time that a cyber threat would be rampant in the environment before, maybe like in a ransomware attack, or like before you actually detect it.
Right.
That stat fluctuates, but it's going to be, weeks, days to weeks, in some cases up to a month, right? The dwell time. So any time during that time that a cyber threat may be within the environment, we're just protecting data. So it's very important that we do protect that data, and we'll keep it in our immutable storage, keep it safe. But it's super important that we provide insights into that data once it's protected in that silo.
Right.
And that's where the clean recovery comes in. We can help customers identify encryption. We can help them identify malware in that content, and then find the last known good version of their data. So when they do a recovery, they'll recover to a clean state. Why is this the competitive moat, like Tim said? It's because that whole process is very complicated. The customer scenario that I told you about before, where they would recover into an isolated recovery environment, that's a reality. That's a very time-consuming process.
Right.
There's an
Well, and it's
opportunity.
manual too, isn't
It's
it? A manual?
manual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's complicated and manual, and requires a lot of hand-holding and
Right.
guesswork. Organizations, oftentimes they might flip back a week's worth of data, flip back 5 days ago. There's always a possibility that you're not recovering good versions of data that might be sitting in newer
Right.
recovery points.
Right.
So there's that threat. So if we can provide a solution where the customer can recover clean data while getting the latest good versions of their files, minimizing that level of loss in a
Right.
very quick, streamlined way, then we're providing true value to our customers. And we've built tools in our platform to do this. Like our threat scan product, it will look at the data, analyze it for you, and tell you if you have malware and encryption in it.
Right. That's really awesome. So now let's talk a little bit more about clean recovery. So so you've set the stage on why it's so important and all of that, but there's a very real challenge here in that in many instances, tools within an organization are not interconnected. That makes
Yep.
the scaling that we talked about that's so important kind of impossible. And it
Yeah.
speaks to the need for those integrated threat intelligence, the integrated threat intelligence for recovery, testing, and validation. And then another part of that challenge is, and I hate to beat the drum, but we got to keep beating this drum to solve the problem. But when you have SecOps and IT ops teams that are not working together, not connected and not working together, this adds to the problem. So that, I believe, is what Commvault-CrowdStrike integration was actually designed to solve for. So will you walk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a multifold thing.
Yeah.
When we start talking about interoperation with SecOps tools, there's also a process element, a people element to it, and I'll get into that. But if you really look at what the platform that CrowdStrike has, it's world class, right? I mean, they're the best of the best. They have claims 100% detection, protection, and accuracy. Sorry, for the endpoint detection product. So you can't beat that, right? We're not trying to build a threat detection platform that competes with that level of intelligence.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to partner with a platform like this and utilize that level of intelligence. And that's exactly what we've done with CrowdStrike. Is we've built the integration in a way where we can utilize their signals, their high fidelity signals, which are indicators of attack, like basically early indicators that something is happening on a system. We utilize those signals and we map them to assets that are protected in our platform. So we're telling our customers that, hey, you have this data being protected in our platform, and there were these cybersecurity events that occurred. And this gives that customer the ability, the proper insight to do a threat scan operation or do a clean room operation to validate that content. And validate that they could actually recover in a clean state. And the second part of it is the two-way or the bidirectional integration that, with CrowdStrike. So not only are we ingesting signals in preview for right now is the ability to send the signals up to their next gen SIM to enrich the SecOps platform. So it's a two-way thing. And the last thing is the human element that I was mentioning before. We also have just a partnership with CrowdStrike in general. Like we have a lot of customers that come to us needing a help recovering from a ransomware attack. It happens to a lot of different organizations, and they come to us. They're using our platform, and we help them in these situations from recovery. But then they need a referral. They need an expert in the security space to help them respond to the security threat in itself. And so CrowdStrike and Commvault, we partner. We have a referral system, and we will help our customers get to the right people they need in order to address their security concerns as well.
Yeah. So basically, we've got two platforms, bidirectional signal sharing, full stack resiliency, all of which are designed to close that resilience gap that we've been talking about. And so Commvault and CrowdStrike uniting to deliver this really comprehensive incident response and readiness services. It's designed to help organizations not only strengthen their security posture, but also deliver on that resilient recovery front, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's two powerhouse platforms working together.
Yeah.
Bidirectional sharing of signals.
Yeah.
With that end goal of security posture, improving security posture, improving fidelity with the signals to drive that clean recovery and resilience.
Yeah. Yeah. So speed isn't the only thing at play here. You've got SecOps and IT ops benefiting a ton. And you've got SOC teams getting visibility into the state of operational resiliency, and IT teams getting access to threat intelligence, which they might not otherwise have. So collectively, this should go a long way toward helping remove some of those operational silos. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think with the two platforms working together in tandem, customers should be ready to go. Apply these interoperated technologies as part of their plans, and they should be ready to go and be resilient.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I also noticed, this joint solution, the Commvault-CrowdStrike joint solution, it's built on secure foundations, including immutable storage, post-quantum cryptology encryption, and air-gapped protection. So I want to just laser in on the post-quantum cryptology encryption. Would you tell us why that's important?
Yeah, I mean, so if you pay attention to what's happening in the PQC uh, uh, developments, right?
Yeah,
It's all over the news where there's a lot of developments on
right,
post-quantum computing and the risk that post-quantum poses for decrypting, um, data using, insecure encryption algorithms, right? So this is kind of like a future threat that we're kind
right,
of paying attention to, and there's also this, this notion of it's all theoretical, but this, you know, harvest now, decrypt later, where threat actors could be capturing encrypted content today using weak algorithms
right,
to maybe potentially decrypt later when post-quantum computers become
right.
more viable and more readily available. These are like, threats that we're looking at. So
Yeah,
what we started doing to kind of to get ahead of that is we started looking at the NIST framework. We started looking at the developments on the post-quantum algorithms that are coming out. These are algorithms that are resistant to post-quantum attacks, essentially.
yeah,
And we're looking to upgrade our platform. We've already been upgrading some of the communication protocols in our platform with these post-quantum algorithms, and we'll continue to do this to stay ahead of this threat. And it becomes super important from a resiliency perspective because it keeps the data safe. Like, we don't want customers encrypting data, putting it in their cloud buckets or in their storage, and it's not in a real safe, space, especially from a future perspective.
right.
So it gives customers like this peace of mind that they're ready to go for the future.
Well, and I think that that's why I wanted to ask you to talk about this briefly, David, because, I know that there is so much on security and IT teams' plates today, just
Yeah.
trying to stay present, much less trying to look ahead. And so I think that working with security vendors who are proactively looking at what's coming, and
Hmm.
the post-quantum age is coming,
Yeah.
and to be putting plans in place and solutions in place that speak to that, I think that gives a level of security. That's kind of one less thing I have to worry about as a practitioner because you're worrying about it, and I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
to stay ahead as much as
yeah,
possible, if that's even possible, right?
yeah.
The way threat actors are just progressing, especially with AI,
Yeah,
assisting with writing code and even enhancing the effectiveness of ransomware attacks. So
yeah. I mean, it kind of feels like the job of SecOps and IT ops teams today is kind of like playing a game of whack-a-mole. I got this
mm,
one. Wait, I got this one. And I mean, it's a really, really tough job, and it's not getting any easier. Your point about AI is
yeah,
very salient, and AI just speeds everything up,
yeah.
and so it's a tricky time for sure.
Yeah, I think what this is just my gut, just based on some of the things I've been seeing. I think you're going to see some pretty interesting developments over the next several years.
Yeah,
Um, I mentioned briefly the AI ransomware. I mean, there was I forget the name of the ransomware itself, but it was just in the news recently. The first ransomware that actually uses, I want to say uses ChatGPT. It queries ChatGPT to make um, adjustments to the commands that it runs locally
yeah,
on the system. So it prompts the LLM, and it makes the ransomware operate smarter. Use the tool sets that it's using within the environment to get around different holes. So or blocks, things
yeah,
like that. So that's going to be a trend, and I think you're going to see some developments in the cybersecurity space around some of the security platforms. Maybe even like in the zero trust space. Different levels of security, especially like on the identity space. Like I think you're going to
yeah,
see a lot of evolution in those areas as these things become more of a mainstream rampant threat.
yeah. I agree. I mean, just as all of us are experimenting with how the use of AI, Gen AI specifically, can help us be more productive and all of those kinds of things. I mean, threat actors aren't dummies. They're using that too. And they're motivated. We're looking to save time and be more productive and gain efficiencies and all that sort of thing. And the more adept they are at using things like Gen AI, the more money they make, the more quickly. So talk about incentivization.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in conclusion, I think it's fair to say that the Commvault-CrowdStrike solution, combining the strengths of two cybersecurity powerhouses, not only helps break down silos, it brings SecOps and IT ops team together. It enables rapid, trustworthy cyber recovery. I think there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot to be excited about. David, I'm so looking forward to your presentation on this at Falcon, and I know our listeners will be excited to learn more about this collaboration between Commvault and CrowdStrike. To our audience, if you'll be at Falcon, make sure and stop by the Commvault booth, which is number 1504. Say hello to David. He'll be glad to walk you through a demo or share more information. And you can also see Commvault's recovery range that we waxed so poetic about earlier in action. And if you don't make it to Falcon, I encourage you to learn more about Clean Recovery and how the Commvault and CrowdStrike solution is helping organizations transform recovery from a vulnerability to a competitive strength, and also delivering on the business continuity front, which is exactly what organizations need today. So please learn more about it if you have, make time. And I will include some links here in the show notes that'll lead you to where you can learn more if you're not going to be at Falcon. David Cunningham from Commvault, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your insights on Clean Recovery. It's been a great conversation.
Yep, anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll get you back here for sure, because you've been amazing. And to our viewers and listeners, I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer & Company. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of Security Square, and we'll see you again here next time.